You're listening to Heroes in the Moment.
What's up, heroes? I'm Michael.
And I'm Nathan.
And today we're doing the Daredevil Born Again final 2 episodes.
We finally back at it.
We finally back with the Daredevil episode 8 and then episode 9 of the series, finishing out a show that was originally supposed to be 18 full episodes, so we'd still be getting them.
Yeah, I wonder what the 18 episodes would have looked like with the original team.
Yeah,
you know?
the original ideas, the original concepts, and then not being split up.
Because it was really clear to see which episodes were before the creative overhaul.
Yeah.
Like watching 8 and 9, which was the new team, you were like, dude, this is so much better than like what we've gotten before.
Right. And then, again, 9 almost didn't feel like a full finale.
Yeah.
2, it was like there was more to it. It felt like the episode before a finale is what it felt like. You know, and they're saving the rest of it, I get, for a season 2. But you're right, episode 8 and 9 definitely felt different. Felt more similar to the episode 1 we got back in the time. The whole Muse plot was just kind of,
Bro, I know.
I don't know. It was good.
They threw him in there and killed him
short.
off. Like what? I think it was 3 episodes.
Yeah, I think he had a 3-episode
2 or 3
plot, and that was
episodes.
it. And it just
He
didn't
could
really
have
have
been
any
for the whole season.
Yeah, he could have been the main villain, and it would have been really cool because Muse was cool.
He was so awesome.
Yeah,
I loved him.
He was a cool character, but they decided to have a therapy session and him come out.
I was like,
as
there's no
Muse,
way that's
and
going to
then-
be that guy,
Yeah,
right?
and that was it.
And he was the only possible suspect, too.
Yeah,
Like, the show introduced no other
They didn't even add
characters.
them like going to talk to other potentials or anything. They were just like, it's him, and we know it's him. Shame,
Shame
you
on
know?
him.
And then he dies.
He's
that
a
was
bad
it.
guy.
And that was unfortunate. And then episode 8 and 9, shifts that. It makes a complete turn to where Kingpin's the main villain. And again, like
I know.
it feels,
It was disjointed,
yeah,
which is to be expected.
right.
I
So-
feel like all things considered, I feel like, they did a decent job trying to piece everything together considering you had 2 different teams work on this season 1. I've seen worse considering, but yeah, man, obviously it's not what you wanted, but I think season 2 now with the new team, I think it's going to be like a knockout of the ballpark,
I fully agree. I fully agree and hope. So let's look at episode 8 first, Isle of Joy, to where we see in this episode lots of different things happening. First off, the one thing is this show has been very consistent with building towards Kingpin, what he's doing,
Yeah.
and how he's not really dropped the Kingpin. You know, he's still going to be building his empire, right?
Yeah, he wants that port.
Yes,
We're trying
he
to
wants
figure out
that,
why.
and then we found out why exactly, and then we see Matt's perspective to where he is also has a very they're both had their battles between the alter egos.
They're
right?
fighting off their more violent natures.
Right. And in episode 8, we see Kingpin rising in, gripping the city, building it up, building, his idea of what he's going to do. And then Matt, on the other hand, we see him and Heather drifting apart.
Yeah.
Because of he's so consumed with it.
Exactly.
You know?
He's going down that darker road. Like you said, he's consumed with it. He has that devil inside of him.
Yeah.
And obviously, he can't just tell Heather he's Daredevil. She not a homie like that, I guess.
Not yet. Well,
I don't think she's gonna be. I think
don't
he
think
hinted
she
at
is.
something saying that like they're gonna be fully broken up for the next season.
I think they will be.
and she's gonna be Team Fisk and everything.
Yeah, I fully agree. I mean, especially since they kind of did that Harry Potter scene later on, and it was he was calling out for Karen when she was there, and
I
that's
know.
just an instant stab in the
Yep.
chest, and it's like and Ron was calling
Babe,
out for
I was on
Hermione.
drugs.
Yeah, that's
it wasn't me.
I was. Yeah, it wasn't my mind.
It wasn't. I wasn't me.
But anyway, it's going to be that same kind of scene.
Yeah.
But I think that kind of was the nail in the coffin. I
Of
don't
course.
see them being able, even though Heather is a great character, but
This boy wildin'.
but
this
they're
brother's
not
starving.
but they're not going to
No.
end up as in game. I don't believe. But
No.
they are drifting apart, and we also see a bullseye plot in this episode. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, man, this was really cool. The cinematography and everything was great on it. It was clear to see that the original team was killing it with him. But getting to see more of his character, getting to see him. This is the one where he broke out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Bro, the whole cinematography with like the lights and everything as he kills everybody in the room.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome.
Seeing him get out and try to, just get his revenge and everything was super cool. I'm glad they finally dived back into, his character. We got to see a little bit of that in the original show, but man, I really need some more Bullseye. Like,
Yeah,
I feel like
I agree.
he's perfectly cast for this role. He's not obviously an RDJ level, but like when people talk about like people perfect for a role, man, dude, like he terrifies me.
He is very
He is such a
scary,
good villain,
intimidating every time he's on screen.
Yeah.
And they also, they make him vulnerable too here, and that's really neat.
And you kind of start to
exploration.
empathize with him, which is weird because he doesn't really have any redeeming factors to him.
No. And then the huge thing is we find out that Vanessa was the one who put the hit on Foggy in the first place.
She had hired him to take him out because he was getting close on kind of revealing some of her stuff.
Right, which leads to a spiral of events with Matt kind of being undecided, like what, he doesn't know exactly what to choose here.
That scene between them was so fire.
It was really, really neat when they were dancing and he, confronted her.
I know.
That was really cool. That was really cool. Great elements there. And that whole black and white ball, and then she was the one with the red, was just really cool.
So cool.
Was really cool because she's the fact that she's the only one in red is a representation of that she's the one that's spilling the blood.
The blood is on her hands.
The blood is on
guilty.
her. So that
was
cool.
awesome.
That was
man.
really, really cool. And the whole sequence of the party goes, he's confronting her, and then after the realization that she's the one that was a problem, he actually jumps in front of a bullet for Kingpin.
Yeah, sometimes I wonder why. And I also wonder why people didn't question that. The fact that he's blind and he just jumps in front of him.
True. And he could always say, whoops, wrong place at the wrong time, I guess. But Bullseye doesn't miss. So
no, he never does.
And Daredevil's the only one that could be the one to be like, oh, I know.
Exactly.
So
I think Matt did for the optics in saving, Fisk's. He kind of saves himself too, because now he's kind of protected in that public eye, where he can't really retaliate against Matt Murdock because he just took a bullet for him essentially,
Right.
I just don't see a reason why he'd want to save his life,
if
not
agree.
for more selfish reason.
Right. That's true. Maybe he wants to be the one himself, but at the same time, I don't know. It's just one of them things where I think he did it because of the fact that he needs more answers and he needs.
Yeah, he needs kind of more closure.
He needs more stuff with that whole entire situation. But that's how the episode ends with him getting shot. That was a really cool sequence, just to get him getting shot. And everybody's like, "Whoa!"
I know,
and that was a cool way. But
man, that whole scene was just fire between the dancing, and Bullseye
that may have
taking
been
his
my
place and
favorite
escaping.
scene from this season. Honestly, I think that was a really, really cool.
Might be my favorite episode too.
I think so. I think Eye of Joy was also probably my favorite episode as a whole.
But no, I felt really bad for Bullseye. Really.
Yeah.
He's just really emotional. He's about to take the shot. He's about to kill somebody.
Right.
Why do I care? But dude, watching Matt confront him in prison, that was such a cool scene.
That was also super cool.
Way earlier. But
and
the whole tooth thing, he's so cool.
The funniest part was when they closed the bonds or whatever, and he hit his head against the table, and he was like, "Guard!" He's hitting his head against the table. That was so funny.
This guy's crazy.
That was so funny.
I love that.
And the Bullseye didn't even fight back. He was just
of course, yeah. They're not gonna be Bullseye, dude, over a blind lawyer.
No, definitely not. But anyway, all right. So then we go into episode 9, which this episode to me had a lot of awesome stuff in it, but also was just it felt incomplete. Does that make sense?
It did feel incomplete. I had a couple bones to pick with this episode. I feel like Marvel kind of consistently gets their characterization of Punisher wrong in this episode. He just feels so reckless and out of control and everything.
Yeah, he doing some stuff that
it's
first season Punisher would do as to
I know
now.
Of course, he. In the comics, he's always prepared for every situation. Even though he's doing all these terrible things, he's prepared. He knows exactly what to do. And in here, it's just he's just swinging. He has no plan.
Just anger.
Yeah, it's just
no rhyme or reason to it either. Yeah, I thought he was awesome. He was really cool.
It was really cool again to see him. Yeah,
the scene in the apartment was awesome. I thought that made complete sense. That was really cool.
They go into killing Matt Murdock, dude, and it's just Daredevil and Punisher.
It's just Daredevil and Punisher, and Punisher's killing everybody, and the Daredevil's like, no.
That was it. That was a cool part, seeing the interactions where Daredevil's trying to save him while Punisher just putting bullets in their heads.
And he does not care. And then the other side of it when Punisher and Daredevil, part ways, and Punisher is going after these guys just because he's angry that he's using his logo? Is that the only reason he was so frustrated that he was going to go?
Yeah, no, I think so, and that's been kind of a theme throughout the entire show. The writers have been trying to show that, hey, like, so there are some bad, eggs on the forest, and a lot of them do adopt this.
And that's another thing that I didn't necessarily appreciate. Falls in more of the realms of a con for this show is how much this show, like the bad cops, the dirty cops, looked up to not Daredevil, but Punisher.
Yeah,
and Punisher wasn't in the show enough to justify it. Does that make sense? Like he was in episode 4, and now he's in episode 9, and there wasn't really like a huge plot with the fact that they were wearing his skull and that they had the bullets with the skull on him. There was nothing, not even a discussion. He just goes, he gets frustrated, mad, and then he goes to this pier trying to beat up 100 cops at once.
Yeah, with no plan.
With no plan. And that just felt really weird.
It does kind of feel out of place. I mean, obviously, they're pulling from real life here. Military and police do that. I don't think it's out of the realm of being possible because, like you said, like Punisher uses excessive force, kind of outside the law, and that's why these dirty cops, kind of look up to him. Right. It's just the way they kind of build up to it was odd.
Yeah, it was odd. I mean, unless that was his whole goal, as we see the end credit scene, which we'll talk about later, to get in that prison or whatever. I don't know.
No, he's not that smart.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. No,
probably not.
I just thought he was letting his emotions get the best of him, and he got in a bad situation.
It felt like there was no build up to that emotion for him to do it.
Because, like you said, I mean, we got to see him in like episode 4, and then like really here,
right? And in episode 4, he was kind of the guy that Matt went to talk to for advice and for stuff. Exactly. Even though it was the best of advice, he still was the one that was experienced, was this, was that. Yeah. Here, it's like he's just spiraling out of control, and there's been no build up.
I want to see some character development for Punisher.
Exactly.
Finally.
There was no character development.
Maybe some maturity would be cool.
Yeah, see, I think that was a lacking, is I feel like instead of just in 2 episodes, Punisher should have been in a few more.
Yeah.
And maybe that was their initial plan.
Maybe he was, yeah. Because I know episode 4, that was before the reshoots. They added in some like lines and stuff to like post-production for his character to say when his character's off screen. So I don't know how much initially they planned for him to be in there. But yeah, his storyline did not fit in quite well.
Yeah, I completely agree. All right, so and then also in this episode we see the return of Karen, which we guessed it way back when.
It was about time,
yeah,
bro.
We knew she wasn't going to be just one and done, not show up again. Again, I would have liked to seen her more than just 1 and 9.
Yeah.
The first episode and the last.
That had to be an original team idea.
Yeah,
like, I feel like she's going to be like a steady regular in season 2.
She's got to be.
She has to be.
She's got to be,
especially with Heather out of the picture.
Right, and they're going to get Matt and her are going to get a lot closer now. Facts. Once again.
Yeah,
for sure.
That boy Matt's such a player, dude. He's flirting with her like the entire episode.
Oh yeah, and it was cool to see her back. And she was the one who actually called Punisher for support, which I thought was interesting.
Which is really cool.
That was neat. And the fact that he was like, he didn't just go, "Who is this? Why are you talking to me like that? Why would I do that?"
Yeah.
Instead, it was more of a, "Yeah, I'll do it."
They've always had a cool relationship that. She's kind of scared the Punisher, but she's also like kind of his mom too, in the sense that she's always looking after him, looking after Matt too, taking care of them, making sure they don't kill themselves.
Right. So that was really cool seeing her back, and her being that kind of that voice of reason was also really
much needed.
But she was also the voice of reason, but also like, Matt, we got to do something too. She wasn't like, "Oh, let's go and off and avoid this." No, she's like, something needs to be done about this. And that's why she called Frank and the rest of the things.
It's just funny how they handled her character. Like, she's barely in the first episode, and then they bring her back as like the big cameo for the last episode.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, I guess with what they were going is for this season, their whole directive was, let's get Matt on his own as Matt Murdock trying to, fix the pieces of his past, but it not working out.
Yeah.
And that's when Karen finally steps back into the picture and was like, "Okay, we need to go back to it.
You got to lock in."
Yeah, exactly.
That's essentially what she tells them.
Exactly. So I thought that was also great in this episode. And in this episode, we also explore the most gory death in the MCU I think we've seen. Definitely seen in the MCU wise.
Yeah, where he tears apart the commissioner's face.
See, I have, 2 things about this scene. Okay. Was it awesome? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Was it unnecessary? Absolutely. You know? Does that make sense?
Kind of.
Because yes, it was a build up to it, and the commissioner was definitely going to die, but I just feel like they did it to do it instead of it being necessary.
Yeah, I do feel like the whole show was kind of leading up to Commissioner Gallo's death, at the same time too, because at his death, they have like police and other members there, so like his death is kind of the final act of, the show signifying that, Fisk is the law. He's now fully taken over, and even these really powerful members, say a commissioner of the police force, they have no chance against him. So I feel like his death was very, it was a metaphor for kind of law and everything else dying. Due to the power of Fisk. Like I said, I think it was really cool. I do think it was necessary for him to die. Maybe, I guess, in the way. But then again, Kingpin's always been a very violent man. And this whole show has been him trying to fight his violent nature. So to see him kind of give into that in the last episode and remind us that he's still the Kingpin, I thought was pretty cool, personally.
I think it was cool. I agree. It just felt very out of place. But then, what you said makes more sense. It's showing him that he's the Kingpin. He's going to do whatever it takes, and he did it. And that was a really brutal death. And I think it was also for the fans. It's okay, this is a TVMA show. We're going to show it, because up to this point, besides a couple of language words, it hasn't been as gory as you think it would be. So that was a cool scene. Really displaying Kingpin's frustration and his ability as well.
Yeah.
So
ripping his face.
Yeah, that was brutal.
That was crazy.
That was brutal. And the rest of the episode kind of displays Daredevil and Karen they were going to go and fight against Kingpin, but they realized that no, they couldn't. It would be, Matt wouldn't stand a chance. He needs help.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the realization of this episode is he needs people to help him out, a team to come into place. And then I was thinking the whole time, okay, Defenders, when we showing up?
Where's my boy Luke Cage?
Yeah,
where's
Luke
Jessica
Cage?
Jones?
Jessica
And it's
Jones.
the worst team of all time.
Yeah.
Bro, I've seen so many memes just ripping up. They're like, what kind of team is this, bro? These are the kind of guys you go shopping to Kmart with or something to get a good
it was
deal.
Two good cops.
Two good cops.
Karen,
Jody at the bar.
Jody at the bar. Who else was there?
Cherry? Was Cherry there?
Yeah, Cherry was there.
Okay.
Cherry's cool, but
I think that might have been it.
I think that was it. What kind of team? What are they going to do?
They're taking on the Chitauri.
Yeah. But, it would have been a lot cooler if we walked into the bar and Luke Cage was there, Iron Fist was there, and Jessica Jones, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe there's been a lot of theories saying that this is just the start and that they will recruit the Defenders and they will show up or whatever.
Yeah.
But again, the end of the episode felt like a finale, but at the same time, it felt like the episode before a finale too.
Exactly.
Okay, he's recruiting a team. Next episode, we're going to see the battle, right? But no, it just ends and then we move on. So it was just kind of that. Again, not to bash on the season, but it's just been the disconnect. This build up wasn't well executed.
Exactly. Kind of reminiscent of Avengers Doomsday.
Yeah. So I don't know.
No, you're right, man. You're right. We've seen some great performances throughout the show.
And great scenes,
some great scenes, some really good episodes. But like you said,
absolutely.
It's just so disconnected that it's kind of hard to get into. And obviously, when you compare it to an OG like the Daredevil show on Netflix, it's just it's vastly different. And I know it left a lot of fans unsatisfied.
Yeah, and I you can't blame them. And not to say that this show was bad, not by any means. In fact, it was probably one of the better Disney Plus shows anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But when looking at the original Netflix Daredevil series, it doesn't really hold a candle.
Yeah, it doesn't hold a candle.
And then when you look at some of these other series, we got WandaVision and Loki. I think WandaVision and Loki were better than Born Again. So
yeah, for sure.
It's one of them things. It's I think it was a good show. It was a good start, but the disconnectedness between the two different showrunners and how they came apart. They should have stuck with a cohesive story rather than manipulating. And I know I'm not a studio exec and I don't know the ins and outs of how that works, but more cohesive, connected storylines would have benefited instead of jumping around from, okay, we're doing a Muse plot, but really that's just going to last. That's going to be a cover up for Kingpin once again.
Yeah.
And it's I liked Kingpin being more of a character that's there and he's a villain, but he's not the main.
And he's not, revealing his hand just yet.
Right. Save him.
You have somebody like Muse the whole season, but Kingpin's working behind the scenes.
Right. For the series.
I think that would work really well.
I agree. So I think some of that would have led to a better, reception of the show. Not to say it was bad or anything. I had a great time watching it. I think week to week, especially those first few episodes.
Yeah.
But I just think there could have been a lot better interconnectedness.
No, I agree with you, man.
All right, any final thoughts? Or
we gotta rank it.
We gotta rate it out of 10.
1 out of 10.
Yeah.
And, first to say, like, when I'm thinking about all the Marvel Disney Plus shows, I would have Loki higher. I definitely would
Absolutely.
have WandaVision higher.
Absolutely.
Besides that, I'm not sure,
X-Men 97, but I mean, it's an anime show.
we can't really count
You can't
that.
really count
it's
that.
just too different.
Moon Knight, it's probably about the same par.
Yeah, I might take Moon Knight over this. Maybe.
It's about the same par, I think. But I think that's about it. I don't think anything else could.
Yeah. No, nothing else is really in that
She-Hulk, absolutely. Yeah, She-Hulk. Let's take She-Hulk.
Yeah, maybe in your dreams.
No.
But out of 10, man, all things considered, how they had to piece the season together, I think I'm gonna go with the 7.
Yeah.
I think it's decent. Like I said, great performances. Charlie Cox is phenomenal. Vincent D'Onofrio is really good.
Yeah, they were definitely
Wilson
awesome.
Bethel as Bullseye in the very few episodes he's in.
Yeah.
I thought their performances was great. So I think that's a decent score.
I think I would give it also a 7 out of 10. I think I don't know if I could go higher.
I don't think I can.
I don't think you can go higher. But 7, I think, is solid. It's an average, solid, good. We had a good time, but it wasn't amazing. It wasn't like next level.
Of course.
So I think 7 out of 10 is solid for this show. I think that's a good pick.
No, I'm with you, man.
Absolutely.
I'm with you. Well, all right, everybody. Thank y'all so much for listening to this episode. And as always, if you liked it, please let us know by giving us a download and a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcast. If you guys want early access to all of our episodes and additional access to fun episodes, feel free to subscribe to our new membership at Heroes HQ. We have a feature on the episodes where you can send us a text message by following the link at the bottom of our episodes. You can submit your questions for Heroes Q&A there, or just shoot us a DM on Instagram. And then finally, feel free to also check out our YouTube channel and our Instagram at Heroes in the Moment.
And we just want to thank y'all for listening. And as always, we love you 3000.